Gazza had the blonde hair, and so many kids from Belfast dyeing their hair blonde.
Did you?
I tried to. I wanted to dye blonde, but I got like blonde tips.
To be fair, blonde tips did have their time, didn't they?
Yeah.
They did back in the day.
I mean, it probably looked like I don't know, you were trying to be a member of Boyzone.
Oh, yeah.
I won Zoo Magazine's Coolest Man of the Year in 2015. So, like, Tom Hardy came second that year. You know what I mean?
Hello, I'm Emma Jones.
And I'm Kae Kurd.
And this is Stripped, brought to you by William Hill.
Yeah, that's right. In this show, we go all nostalgic with our celebrity guests and look back at the shirts that made us fall in love with the game.
Yes, we do. Our guests select 4 shirts to tell the story of their lives. The first one, the haunted one, the unforgettable one, and finally, the named one.
That's right. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We've got loads of great shows coming up for you.
We certainly do. Specs and Vuj have gone a bit rogue. We've got Vuj at the World Cup, having a great time.
He is.
And Specs has gone missing. I think it's when he heard I was doing this.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, there could be worse things to do, though.
There certainly could. But today's guest is a boxing legend. Now, this man is a former 2-weight world champion and the biggest Glasgow Rangers fan you will ever meet.
That's why I'm wearing all blue today. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Carl Frampton! Thanks for coming on, Carl. How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah? You good?
Not bad.
Buzzing to be here.
Yeah.
You sound it.
Yeah, no, I am. Just before we go on, I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Glasgow. There's some fanatical Glasgow Rangers fans there.
Okay.
Oh, for a second I was worried. For a second I was worried. I thought he'd be like, I only know like 3 of the players or something.
No, I know them, like, but I mean, there's fanatics and then there's
today's guest is a bang average Glasgow Rangers fan. Are you happy with that?
That'll do, yeah.
Genuinely, thank you so much for joining us, Carl. We've got to start with your nicknames. Let's go in on that, because you've got 2. Tell us what they are and why.
I don't have 2, I have 1.
No,
The Jackal.
well,
what's the other one?
The other one that you have is Brickfist.
No, that's not. That was someone made that up. Just some.
Who made that up?
I think it was a guy called Leonard Gunning who used to write for like an Irish website, and he called me Brickfist. It doesn't like. I could punch a bit. Brickfist is someone you call someone like Golovkin, Brickfist, who knocks everyone out. I knock out like 50%, so it doesn't really.
So
make
what would
sense.
you call your fists?
That sounds like mediocre or something like that.
Semi-brick fists.
Yeah,
we'll go with that.
Yeah.
Drywall fists or something.
And where did the Jackal come from?
The Jackal. I used to get called Carlos when I was in school because my name's Carl, obviously, and I liked to play football. And Roberto Carlos was kind of in his prime when I was a kid.
Incredible, wasn't he?
Yeah. I'm not comparing myself to Roberto Carlos, but
But
yeah,
you are.
I was a friend of mine, a kid called Marky Adamson, used to call me Jackal. So Carlos was my name, but there's an infamous Colombian terrorist, I think, called Carlos the Jackal. There's a guy who tried to like blow up like Parliament buildings in France.
Wow.
So he called me Jackal.
So
from
he's their Guy
Carlos.
Fawkes.
Yeah.
So essentially, you're like a Latin American Guy Fawkes.
Pretty much, yeah. So he called me it, and then when I had to think of a boxing nickname, I suggested that, and that was it, really.
Does Marky Adamson know that he's responsible for
Marky
this?
knows. I've told this story a few times, so I always like to give him his dues here because, yeah, he was the one that called me it, and I've kind of stuck
If
with
you
it.
could go back in hindsight, what would you have named yourself if you could choose?
I like the Jackal.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I
that's
don't
good
mind it.
then.
I don't mind it, yeah.
Yeah, because some people I think really lean into their names, and some people I think they choose it at the beginning and they're like, "What do I call myself that?"
Yeah. I like it. I like the Jackal.
It's like when some people call themselves Pretty Boy, and then like after a few fights, you're like, "That doesn't really hold up anymore, does it?"
Floyd done that, didn't he? And then he changed it to Money Mayweather afterwards. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, there's a lot of YouTube fights and stuff going on as well. I know we had a chat about it earlier, but like, what's your opinion on them? Are you enjoying watching them?
No, I don't enjoy watching them. I hated it really at the start, like really hated the whole YouTube thing. But I understand what's happening and I understand what they're doing. But the thing that annoys me the most is when these YouTube guys, start talking about they want to fight Canelo or the top guys. It's like, just know your limit, mate, and fight the guys, fellow YouTubers. That's fine. You get big numbers watching and stuff, but just know your lane.
Is there anybody you'd come out and fight? Because I know like Carl Frampton said he'd beat Jake Paul. Yeah, or he wants to fight Jake Paul.
Yeah.
And I know you've said Tommy Fury would lose against Jake Paul.
Yeah.
How did his dad say it?
Yeah.
Yeah, John, he didn't like what I said. And that's all I said. I wasn't really disrespectful to the kid, but you got to remember where Tommy Fury is like, is a similar level to Jake Paul. Like because Tyson Fury can really fight.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that Tommy Fury's going to be a good fighter. He's not. He's a novice professional, and he's getting better. But at this stage, I would still think Jake Paul.
So is there anybody you'd come out of retirement to fight? It doesn't have to be a boxer. Anybody?
I don't know. It doesn't have to be a boxer.
Would it be a Celtic player?
Nah.
Henrik Larsson coming out of retirement.
What a player Henrik Larsson was. I had to say that. But no, who would I fight? I don't really know. If you give me long enough, I could probably come up with a good name. But it's funny. I haven't really told anyone this, but you've got you've got Ricky Hatton and Barrera doing these kind of exhibition fights. I've been approached by a former fighter, to do one of these fights.
Who?
Wayne McCulloch. So this is, do you know Wayne McCulloch?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wayne was like a world champion. He's older than me, from Belfast, living in Vegas now. A friend of mine.
Oh, that Wayne McCulloch.
Yeah, that one.
That one.
Yeah. But he's talked about having like an exhibition fight with me. And I think at the start, I kind of thought, look, it's not my cup of tea, but maybe, who knows?
Bills to pay.
Who knows?
And all that.
Bills to pay. All
Energy
that,
crisis.
Yeah.
He
Who
needs
knows?
more.
I'd love to see you scrapping Roy Keane. I think that'd be a...
Oh, I love Roy Keane. Love Roy Keane. Yeah.
I'd watch it though.
Yeah.
Purely for the press
I think people
conference.
would.
Yeah,
I don't think I'd beat Roy Keane in a fight these days.
Do you not?
Really?
Not a chance.
Really?
I feel like we now need to make that happen just to see the result.
It'll be very close anyway.
Let's talk about the Fury Chisora fight and your predictions for that.
Predictions, I think that Fury will win the fight. He's beaten him twice before. The second time was really comfortable for him, even though it was a long time ago. It was a number of years ago now. But I think they're both different fighters now. Fury's not as agile now as he was then. And he's a different type of fighter. He's way more aggressive now than he was then. He used to get up on his toes and move around and kind of outbox people. But he's kind of seek and destroy now.
So why do you think people should watch this?
Because I think Derek is similar to Tyson in terms of how aggressive he is. I think that, look, in Tyson's last fight against Dillian Whyte, I was really disappointed with Dillian Whyte's performance, and I thought Tyson was going to win the fight. I didn't think it would have been as comfortable as it was, and I was a bit disappointed with Dillian, if I'm being honest. But this fight's going to be a better fight than Fury Dillian Whyte, just because Derek is so aggressive. He's just brave. He's game.
Yeah.
He'll really try. He'll have a go, but yeah, it's hard for me to see a way that he can win the fight.
Do you think Fury AJ will ever happen now? Because obviously he's fighting Chisora again because apparently for whatever reason the other fight couldn't be made.
Yeah, I think they will at some point. You gotta remember, there's so much money still to be made in that fight, and I know AJ suffered a couple of defeats recently, but that fight is a mega fight, and the money that can be generated is insane. So I think it'll happen at some point. I don't know when, but yeah, it's gotta happen.
Hopefully it happens while they're still both...
Yeah, sooner rather than later. I'd love to see Fury Usyk next.
Who do you think wins that?
I think Fury, because of his size, really. Usyk's a good fighter, very good fighter. But I think the size will be the difference, really, in that fight.
It's so mad in the heavyweight division, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because like size plays such a
Huge
massive
part,
part. Yeah, whereas like in the other sort of weight classes, I feel like it doesn't have that much of a...
Yeah, well, it depends. My last fight, I went up. So I fought at super featherweight at the end of my career. I started as a super bantamweight, so it's a couple of weight divisions apart. So I was a very small super featherweight, but I was fighting a guy called Jamel Herring who had boxed as high as he boxed at light welterweight in the Olympics.
Yeah.
So he's a lot bigger than me.
Yeah.
I remember seeing him on the scales and seeing how much he had to boil down to make the weight. And I kind of made the weight really comfortably, just walk on the scale and like, yeah, that's fine. But I looked at him in the scales going, he has killed himself to make this weight. Like, I'm going to go right through you on fight night.
Yeah.
But then when he came into the ring on fight night, he was like a different man.
Wow.
I looked across the ring going, oh, you know, what have I
You've
done here?
rehydrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, look at what water
This
can do.
wasn't the same guy I seen a day and a half ago.
Oh, yeah.
Carl, just on AJ there, drawing on your own experiences, where do you think his head's at the minute?
I don't know. The guy's got to be under so much pressure. He's always in the spotlight, and everybody talking about his career, everybody talking about what he should do and how he should fight. I don't know where his head's at the minute. He's got to be in a difficult situation. Obviously, we've seen what happened in the ring after the Usyk defeat, the last one, and it was like, I felt a bit sorry for AJ, and I remember looking, I couldn't really believe what I was seeing, but I like the big guy. I respect him as well. I think if I was him, what I would do is, you know, we keep talking about these new trainers, and I think he should get a trainer, whoever it may be, probably an American trainer, go to America where he's not as big as a name as he is here, and just get the head down and focus on fighting.
Well, Carl, we're here to talk football shirts. So let's start with your first one, the shirt that made you fall in love with the game. No surprise, you've picked Glasgow Rangers 95-96. What a side this was.
Yeah, I think this was my first Rangers shirt.
Gazza and Ali McCoy.
Gazza, Ali McCoy's,
Ali.
Albert, centre back, Laudrup, you know what?
Laudrup.
Yeah.
Oh my! People forget like Denmark used to have some players.
Oh,
man.
what a team! They were a great side then, and yeah, that was the.
It's a beautiful shirt.
It was my first shirt, and being where I'm from, in Northern Ireland, like most people either support Rangers or Celtic because of the political divide and everything else. So where I'm from, we're all Rangers fans. So I just kind of felt like I had to support Rangers, but I loved it, and Rangers are.
At that age, did you get to any of the games?
I went to a couple of games as a kid, but only a few. Always kind of watched them on TV, but.
What was that like when you're going for your first game?
The first game I think I went as a kid was. They played at home to Kilmarnock. I can't even remember the score. I think they won, but you know, doesn't seem like a Rangers against Kilmarnock. But
yeah.
I mean, for me, going over there for the first time, it was a big deal.
Of course, yeah.
When you look at those kind of sides, when you look at the Glasgow Rangers and you look at the fan base, and you imagine actually being there as a fan, we talk so much about the atmosphere at these kind of games, but can you sum it up in words what it's actually like being there?
I was lucky enough to go to a Rangers Celtic game.
When you were younger?
No, I was a few years ago.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was intense, really intense. I think what's happened recently, and Rangers and Celtic will both blame each other on this, but they've only given the away fans an allocation of I think 1,000 tickets. So there's 1,000 Celtic men at Ibrox and maybe 1,000 Rangers supporters at Parkhead, and it's not the same. I imagine if I'd have been, you know, when I was wearing that Rangers shirt, if I'd have been to an Old Firm then, it's a different story. But it's a bit of a shame, actually. I think the atmosphere isn't the same, but it was still really, really intense.
It's like that with a lot of derbies, isn't it? Like, you know, when you just talk about Everton and Liverpool, and people used to be mixed. Both fans would be mixed, so you'd have an Everton fan sitting next to a Liverpool fan. And, I think we've lost a lot of that sort
No, you can't do it.
I understand the reasoning behind it, but also I think it takes away from some of the heaviness that we feel in a derby, in those huge derbies, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that it would be better if there was more fans from the opposing team at the stadiums, really. It's just, the atmosphere isn't the same anymore, but, I mean, Rangers and Celtic, you talk about, you know, Manchester derby or Liverpool derby or derbies in London that don't compare, really. The hatred that these guys feel for one another it's bitter.
It's personal,
real.
isn't it?
It's personal, it's bitter. I have friends who are Celtic fans and Celtic fanatics, but we're friends, and I feel like you get labelled as, if you're a Rangers fan or a Celtic fan, a lot of people like to label you as a bigot. But we don't always have to be like that. There's bigots amongst each fan set of supporters, but you know, it's a football game after
Yeah.
all, and that's all it is.
Did that kind of, like you say, those labels, you do seem to get labelled in those fan bases. Did that kind of shape you and your personality growing up a bit?
Maybe. Like I said, where I came from, you had to support Rangers because everybody else did. My dad was a Rangers fan. Growing up, my uncles were Rangers fan. One of my uncles used to go to most home games and stuff, and you know, that's a bit of a journey going from Belfast, getting the ferry over to Scotland, and then driving from Stranraer to Glasgow to go to a football game.
How long would that take? What, like 5 hours?
Yeah, probably something like that, start to finish. So, but people are fanatical about these teams, really.
That's what makes it so special as well.
Yeah.
The dedication from the fan base.
Yeah. And now that season, obviously, Gazza and McCoist, and like that beautiful shirt. What do you remember from that season?
Gazza had the blonde hair and dyed bleach blonde. I remember so many kids from Belfast, Rangers supporters, dyeing their hair blonde.
Did you?
Like, I tried to. I wanted to dye blonde, but I got like blonde tips, so it wasn't completely blonde. But
well, hang on. Why didn't you go completely blonde?
I don't know.
Were you not allowed?
Maybe that's why. I don't know. Blonde tips. I don't know. Why was I allowed blonde
To
tips?
be fair, blonde tips did have their time, didn't they?
Yeah.
They did back in the day.
I mean, it probably looked like I don't know. You were trying to be a member of Boyzone.
Oh,
Maybe.
yeah.
A bit different from a Rangers player or something. But yeah.
But that's how popular these guys were. Like kids used to walk into barbers and say, "Give me a Gazza."
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah. Have you ever met him? Or Ali McCoist?
I never met him, and I've never met Ali McCoist. Followed me recently on Instagram.
Oh my gosh, you
How
must
did
have gone
that feel?
I'm
mad.
delighted about that. Love Ali McCoist, like, and still love him. Listen to him on Talksport and stuff, and you hear him at the World Cup on ITV. And Ali
He's
McCoist,
so lovable.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he's funny.
Yeah.
And he's an icon really to a lot of people from where I'm from, Belfast, Glasgow as well, obviously. But yeah, he's admired a lot.
I used to watch Question of Sport just because he was on it.
He's funny.
Just because he was
man.
on it, yeah. He was hilarious, wasn't he?
Comes across as a genuinely lovely guy.
I think so.
It was around this time as well, am I right in thinking that you started boxing?
Yeah, it was around 95, something like that. I started boxing.
How old were you at the time? Then?
I was 7.
Wow.
7, 8, yeah, really young. And when I was 7 or 8, I looked like I was 5.
Oh.
So I remember actually the first time going down to a boxing club, and my mum brought me down with a group of friends, and they weren't going to let me in because they thought I was too young. The guy kind of said, "Look, just sit." They made me sit on a chair and watch what went on. And then I just sat and watched, and they said, "Look, if you want to come back, you can come back." So I came back, and that was me. I was kind of
That's
hooked.
incredible at such a young age. I think people so often don't realise, like, boxers and stuff, you start at such a young age and you've dedicated your whole life to it a lot of the time.
It's too young, really, if I'm being honest. Like, I wouldn't... My boy, my youngest son, he's just turned 8. I wouldn't let him box at that age.
Really?
I think, 10 or 11's probably the right age to start getting into it. But it was a different time back then. And
I was going to say that times were different back then, weren't they?
Yeah.
Do you remember the first person who recognised that you had this skill?
Yeah, it was my old coach, amateur coach, a guy called Billy McKee. Billy's like, Billy was like my idol, really. Just what I imagine every man should be. He's hard. He was just straight down the lane, really honest. Didn't take no off anybody. Just a tough little Belfast man, but full of wisdom, like always, like give me good advice all the time, and I love Billy.
He passed away last year.
He passed away last year, yeah, and it was sad. It was really sad, and he told me a story actually when I went to see him. And he's short. He was my height, a little bit smaller than me, but he was like little tank still at like 80-year-olds. And he used to do press-ups every day, and he had these dumbbells in his room, and he used to lift the dumbbells. And
love that.
When he got sick, his wife had kind of banned him from doing the press-ups and the dumbbells, but I think he used to go and sneak away and do some little weights in the room and pump a wee bit of iron. So when I went to see him, he told me, like, He looked a bit tired, and I was like, "You all right?" And he went, "Yeah, I'm a bit tired. Don't be telling her, but I've done a few press-ups this morning, and I'm just not feeling great from it." But like Billy's a hero of mine.
Did he, throughout the entirety of your life, offer you his wisdom? Was that relationship a constant?
Yeah, always. He hated professional boxing. Like, he's an amateur guy through and through, and he knew that professional boxing was a business, and there was money to be made, and where there's money to be made, there's a lot of snakes and shady characters. But Billy was just as honest as they come, really, and he always he's a real family man, and he understood family values, and he always kind of told me, like, boxing is your job, it's what you do, but your wife and your kids are the most important. You have to remember that all the time, and that's something I always remember.
Sounds like a wonderful, wonderful man.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Let's talk about your love for this Rangers side. Obviously started at a very young age. How do you feel about the current Rangers side?
They got to the final last year, the Europa League.
We got the Europa League final last year, which is unbelievable, really.
Did you go?
No, I didn't. I didn't go. I probably could have got tickets off BT as well.
You're only thinking about it now. Like,
I know, yeah.
I should have used my links there, man. Yeah.
But no, I didn't go. But that was an amazing achievement for a team who, a Scottish football team who don't have the budget that some of the other teams have that they were coming up against. But they played with so much passion last year and so technically minded, and it hasn't been the same this year.
So do you think it was right for Giovanni Branco?
I don't know. I hate it when, he done amazing things less than a year ago to bring him to the Europa League final. So I think the finger always gets pointed at managers when teams aren't doing too well, and it shouldn't always be the case, and the players have to take a wee bit of accountability as well.
A couple of players left as well, didn't they?
Yeah. And Bassi as well, but the money that were offered for him from Ajax was incredible, so they had to take it. But a few players left, and they didn't really bring many in. I think we still need a defender. We have a few defenders injured as well. Goldson's injured, and we're a good side, decent side, Rangers, but they haven't been performing.
Let's talk about your unforgettable shirt now, Carl. This is the one that holds a special place in your heart. And this one is the Crusaders 96-97 shirt. And I've got to say, it's a beautiful shirt, that.
It's niche. I thought it looked like a Milan shirt.
Yeah.
So people in England, like, when they ask, who do you support? And the Crews are my first team. So Crusaders are my first team, above Rangers. So people say, who do you support? And say Crusaders. And they don't know who they are, but they're now a professional outfit. They were semi-pro then. I used to go to all the home games, and the stadium's like less than a mile from where I grew up. So the shirt that I picked, they won the league that year. And I remember when they won the league, I think they drew in the last day of the season. They had, if they get beat, they lost, but they had to win or draw, and they drew with Coleraine, I think. They're another massive club. Yeah. So they drew with them, and I was one of the first people on the pitch. Like, I was over the fence, but when I was on the pitch, I was a kid and I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I was like, and I didn't know where to go, and I just stood there, and everyone kind of bombed on the pitch, and they were hugging the players, and then I got involved after that. But that was great memories for me. And
did you go as a family to the games and stuff?
No, I went. My uncle was a big Crusaders fan.
Okay.
And he went to a lot of the games. I played for a club called Lochside Boys, who were affiliated, like a feeder club for Crusaders.
Okay.
And were
they still semi-pro at this point as well? And they still had a feeder club?
Yeah,
wow.
absolutely. So I played for Lochside Boys, and we got a season ticket.
Oh, nice.
For a $5.
Oh,
so that's what it cost us.
What, a $5 for the whole year?
$5 for the whole year.
That's incredible.
God.
So we, I went to all the home games, yeah, and I don't get down to as many matches as I should, but the Crews are still very close to my heart.
What's the fan base like, the Crusaders fan base?
It's small. They're not one of most well-supported clubs in Northern Ireland, if I'm being honest. And it's something that annoys me a little bit. You've got a lot of guys from the Shore Road, where I'm from, North Belfast, who they literally live 50 yards from Specs Vuj, Crusaders ground, but they support Linfield.
Why?
Because they're the team that wins everything. And
Glory hunters.
Yeah, they're all glory hunters. So, and again, you talk about politics and everything, and Linfield are the big Protestant team, and everybody supports them. Crews would be also supported by a majority of Protestants, but a bit more neutral. They had a lot of players coming up from Dublin and stuff during the Troubles, and yeah, that's something that it pisses me off a wee bit. Guys literally live a stone's throw from the ground, but they support another team.
It's crazy that you talk about the different demographics of people that support certain teams, and it's hard to get away from that in Northern Ireland, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's there in every aspect of life. Was that hard growing up, trying to maneuver that, or was it sort of better as you were?
Not really. I think if you're sensible about it, it's okay. Obviously, you kind of get painted with, everyone gets painted with the same brush. If they support Rangers, you're saying, he's a bigot, he's a scumbag, he's a loyalist, bigot, whatever. And if you support Celtic, you're a Republican bigot. But it's not always the case. It's a football team, but from knowing who people support, you can kind of where they're from, and it's just it was hard. It was hard as a kid, really. But being a boxer, it was always a thing. Like most boxing clubs were no football shirts in the club, because
wow.
It just caused division and tension. Yeah. And like I said, Rangers and Celtic, it wasn't like Man United and Man City. It was real bitter.
So if you had to have a fight in any stadium,
yeah,
would it be Rangers or Crusaders?
Crusaders.
Really?
Yeah. Which is smaller. You wouldn't get many in, but
you wouldn't have to worry about selling it out.
There was talk of me fighting at Crusaders before, but I think you'd maybe get 4,000 into the stadium, but then with the pitch you can put maybe another 4,000 on the pitch, so 8,000. But the Odyssey, the arena where I fought, held 9,000 people, and it's way more expensive to do an outside broadcast as well. Yeah. So promoters don't want to do it, and there was a genuine discussion about me fighting at Specs Vuj, Crusaders ground, but it never materialized.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah, would have.
Would you have been the first boxer to do that as well?
I think so. Maybe there was fights, years ago, 40s or 50s, but I'm not sure. Probably the first.
You've spoken, Carl, because obviously we touched on the whole Rangers Celtic situation. You've spoken about how growing up there was a lot of conflict over there, and boxing helped you through that, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just kind of made me, I suppose, grow up. Like you said, coming from where I come from, a place called Tigers Bay, which is a loyalist stronghold, and you're always influenced as a kid. You're influenced by the older people in the area, and some of the influences I had were people who just hated people from the other side of the road. So I lived in Tigers Bay. There was a road that divided my housing estate with the New Lodge, which was a Republican stronghold. So you assume that you hate these people across the road because they're Republicans and you are a unionist or loyalist, whatever you want to say. But that's not the case, and boxing was always a sport that kind of brought both sides together. And that's where I kind of got my integration, through boxing. The schools are they're separated, Protestant schools and Catholic schools at home, and very few integrated schools. And my integration really came through boxing and training in the New Lodge and the Falls Road and West Belfast with Catholics who, if it hadn't been for boxing, I wouldn't have been mixing with these guys. And the same.
You wouldn't have had any friends supporting Celtic if it wasn't.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, that was where I got my integration, through boxing and mixing with Catholic kids.
So it was just because they never allowed football shirts and stuff like that. You didn't know. You didn't know who people really were.
And people, I think at home, people respected fighters, no matter really where you were from, if you were Protestant, Catholic, whatever, Unionist, Republican.
It's hard not to respect someone that can take a...
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So it was always, it's a working class sport, and you know, people seem to respect fighters at home. Yeah.
Do you think you, because of your background and where you were brought up, do you think you grew up almost too quickly?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. It was. I had a good childhood. Look, I lived in a rough area, but you know, there's rough areas in London, Manchester, Liverpool, all over the UK. Really, I lived in a rough.
But when you're young, you don't really realise it's rough. Do you know?
No,
it's
it's
just
just
where
all
you
right.
live, innit?
It's
Yeah,
your
it's
life.
just where you live, and
That's
then
it.
you sort of grow up, and you're like, hey, did people let off fireworks in your area?
Yeah.
And then people are looking at you like, no, that never happened.
Where I lived, like it was on an interface. So my street in Tigers Bay was the closest street to the New Lodge. So literally, it was like the Wild West. I mean, like especially in the summer months when rioting and started, you know, people fighting, hand-to-hand fighting, guns being pulled, petrol
I thought you meant there was a
bombs.
lot of horses and...
No. So it was pretty rough, but it was exciting when you were a kid. You know, you see, and it was just normal. It was normalised, but it shouldn't have been normalised.
No,
but
of course.
that's just the way it was.
So would you just not talk to the people almost on the other side of the street then?
Yeah, because only for boxing.
Wow.
And if I hadn't been for boxing, I may have grew up with this hatred of these people because of what I'm hearing from other guys in the street. But
Has it affected the way you bring up your children?
well, I'm in a mixed marriage, so I've married a Catholic girl. We're not religious. I say Catholic girl and Protestant. I'm not a Protestant because I'm not religious. She's not Catholic because she's not religious. But that's what you were brought up as. But I'm in this mixed marriage, as they call it, at home, and my kids, they have a different life than what I had, and they don't even really know what I grew up in, really.
Of course,
Yeah, it's different, and I like it like that.
So do your kids have an Ulster fry? Like, what is this? This is
Ulster
what
fry, yeah,
I've been hearing about, this version of a fry. What is it?
So you get fry-ups. There's fry-ups everywhere, but the Ulster fry, in my opinion, is the best fry-up you can get.
What makes it amazing?
So it's, well, the potato bread, really.
What's potato bread?
Look at her carbs. She's immediately involved.
It's unbelievable. Potato bread. It tastes a bit like gnocchi.
Oh, I love gnocchi.
Yeah, a little bit like that. I think.
But is it
only
a big...
it's flat. It's about that size, and it's fried.
That like gnocchi, but that big.
Yeah.
I'm all over that.
But it's flat. It's like a bit of bread, but it's like fried. It's nice.
Do you have anything? Because obviously with gnocchi, you have like a sauce on it normally. Do you have a bit of like
no,
something?
Well, a bit of red or brown sauce. That's it.
And then what else do you have around the gnocchi?
The
potato bread.
The same stuff as you get on a fry. Like,
talk us through it.
Yeah.
She's never been so excited about
I'm
anything.
hungry, right?
Bacon, egg, potato bread, soda bread. Which
you
is
have two breads on it.
Two types of bread, yeah.
This
soda
is game
bread.
changing. I like it. Have you ever had a farl, a soda farl? Do you know what that is? That the same thing?
Soda farl's the same.
Oh, my granddad gets me them. They're lovely,
they're
aren't they?
nice,
They're like the triangles.
Yeah.
The
So how do you have it? Do you fry it or toast it?
I toast it. I've never even considered frying it.
I like them. They're nicer toasted with butter.
Oh,
but
yeah.
when you fry them on a fry up, they're tasty too.
Right, your next shirt is the haunted one. The one that brings back painful memories and gives you sleepless nights. Carl, which shirt have you gone for?
A Celtic shirt when Henrik Larsson played for him, John Hartson, Chris Sutton.
Umbro, NTL.
Yeah.
Like,
a great side.
Larsson with the dreads.
Yeah,
that was a different Henrik Larsson.
Yeah, you have to respect him. What a player. I think at a stage, like, any club, when he was playing for Celtic, any club in the world would have had Henrik Larsson.
Oh, 100%. He was scoring like 50 goals a season. It was before Messi. Like, I know nowadays people think it's like
happens all the time.
Yeah. But back in the night,
he was.
Or the 2000, like no one was scoring 50 goals in a season.
And I think they got him. I don't know where they got. I think they got him from a Swedish team, Celtic. I think for like.
Yeah, I think it was like Helsingborg or something.
Yeah, but for very little money.
Yeah.
You know, if you had to have one Celtic player at Rangers, would it have been Larsson?
Larsson, yeah.
All day long.
All day, every day, yeah.
He did 3 months at Man United on loan.
Yeah.
And I think we all fell in love with him.
Yeah.
And it was like a 3-month stint, and it was like if only we'd have got him when he was younger.
Yeah, great player. He went to, isn't he, Barcelona as well? I
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, it's
Great player.
incredible. Like, I mean, that must have been hard watching Celtic dominate during that period with him playing as
like
well.
As a kid, like I hated them. Like I didn't, you know, I've grown up now and understand what it's about and it's football. But I mean, I hated everybody that played for Celtic. But I've met a couple. I've met John Hartson. I've met Chris Sutton. You know, just they're nice guys. But I had this image that, you know, deep hatred for them at one point. But they're just
Things got really
players.
bad for you lot as Rangers fans anyway, because then you went into administration.
Yeah, and had to come up through the leagues, and you know, it's difficult to, you know, when you're playing teams like Cow and Beef, you know, it's like
I don't even know what they are.
Yeah.
It's
not
that sounded
that
like an off-brand like gravy or something.
yeah, Montrose.
Oh my
You know,
gosh.
it's just not that exciting.
It's like a small supermarket.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But that must have been so painful watching them do so well and be so dominant while you're suffering.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. But look, it's just one.
Could
of
you
them
even
things.
get some of the games on TV?
Yeah, I think so. I think you were getting maybe not all of them, but because Rangers were still a big club, and I mean, when they went in the administration, they were going to these little, you know, dopey grounds all over Scotland, you know, 4th tier teams with, I mean, the whole like maybe 3,000 capacity, and Rangers are bringing 15,000 fans to try and get. You know what I mean? It's like we're still a massive club.
Oh wow.
Ali McCoist was a huge part of getting you back to the Premiership, wasn't he?
Yeah.
How much respect do you... I know you've spoken about your love for him, but just how loved is he?
Yeah, he's so. I love Ali McCoist, and I think every Rangers fan loves him, especially my generation. Like, and I watched him play, you know, growing up, and he's a great player. Always scoring. He had a great partnership with Mark Hateley as well, who I've got to meet. Got Mark Hateley's number on my phone as well, which is unbelievable. Yeah, so that was just.
Have you ever called him?
Yeah.
What about?
Yeah, well, getting voice notes and stuff, a few text messages, about tickets for games, and, you know, get myself. Well, I've been to a few in the last couple of years, and trying to get favours sorted, and uncles and stuff wanting to go. So Mark was someone who used to sort me out.
Between him and BT, there's no excuse for you never not to
No,
get to a
I know,
game, is there really,
but
Carl?
I mean, I don't have a lot of time anymore.
But what was that like for you, that period personally, as a fan? You know, you grow up, you love your club, they become a huge part almost of your identity. And for so many people watching that happen, what was that like? Do you remember the feeling around the club at that time?
Yeah, look, it was heartbreaking for everybody who followed Rangers. Really, you know, we're arguably, you know, we'll say we're the biggest club in Scotland. Celtic fans will say they're the biggest club in Scotland. I mean, in terms of fan base and stuff, like it's huge. There was talk at a stage of Rangers and Celtic maybe going into the Premier League. As well, and then we're in the 4th division of Scottish football. It was hard to take for a lot of people, and a lot of people kind of fell away from it. But like me, you know, I was a kid who loved Rangers, and then, you know, it's not the same watching them. And, you know, it's a wee bit of a glory hunter mentality. I hate
Well,
that.
I don't think it is. I think when you become accustomed to success, like it's hard to sort of experience that. It's like when a team doesn't make the top 4 in the Premier League, people are like, "Oh my God, we've had a horrible season." But it's like certain teams would give their life to get to whatever that place is. But if you become so accustomed to Rangers being successful and dominant, to be in a 4th tier.
No, I know it was hard. Yeah.
Carl, you know, if Rangers and Celtic were in the Premier League now, how do you think they'd fare? Honestly.
No, I'm going to be honest. You're laughing. What are you saying?
I think it'd be
Remember
really
who you're
hard.
talking
It'd be
to.
difficult, but I
think it'd be really hard.
I think you look at Rangers' exploits last year in the Europa League.
Yeah.
I think they're mid-table teams.
Interesting.
What are you saying? Go on.
I think they'd need to get a season where they get as much money as the Premier League sides.
The money
do.
would come though.
Yeah, that would come.
If they had the same sort of level playing field as in the money, I think they could do really well because of the size of the fan base and stuff as well. But I think if they went in with the squads that they have now, I think they'd struggle for the first season or so.
Relegated?
Not relegated, but I think they'd struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is hard. But I think with two colossal fan bases like that and with investment, there's no reason why. And they become a much more attractive prospect for foreign investors as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if you're talking about like we've seen with Newcastle and what that's done for them with investment. If Rangers and Celtic were in the Premier League and people were looking at potential clubs to invest in, they're two whose potential.
Well, it's a lot more attractive for players to play in the Premier League than the Scottish Premier League as well. So
I think as well the Premier League would benefit from those fan bases. It would be incredible.
Undoubtedly, yeah. I think it would be.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit of a shame because Scottish football the gap between Premier League and like Scottish football wasn't this big.
No,
before.
it wasn't. No, you know.
You had Gattuso playing for Rangers.
I saw Gattuso as a kid playing at Crusaders for Rangers. So he was 17, 18, I think.
Yeah.
And they played Crusaders in a friendly.
What was he like? What was that like?
I don't really remember. I remember he was short. That's what I remember.
But it's just mental that he's gone to there anyway.
Yeah, so he played for Rangers at a point. So
so did Arteta. I think people forget that.
Yeah, that's right. But I remember I saw Gattuso playing against Crusaders in a friendly, which was great.
That is insane.
Yeah.
That is insane. To sort of like Gattuso turning up in Northern Ireland.
Yeah,
mental.
Winning the league in 2021, did that feel a bit like redemption?
Yeah, it was great. It was kind of like we're back. You know what I mean? And like I said earlier on, I thought that was it. We're just going to keep winning the league, and Rangers are back to where they need to be. But that wasn't to be. And Gerrard left, and it just hasn't. From that point, it really hasn't went as I would have liked it. But Europa League final, can't really complain about that. Yeah. And for a Scottish team to be doing that, and so many great sides still playing.
And you put up a great performance. It wasn't like you got thrashed or losing on penalties is.
Yeah, no, I know it was hard to watch, but they done well. They done well, but it hasn't been the same this year.
I don't think it's all doom and gloom, man. I think you guys, you've got a good future ahead of you.
Yeah.
Right, Carl, let's talk about your named shirt. This would be the shirt that will bear the name of your footballing icon. Yeah. You have gone for George Best.
Yeah.
Tell us why. I mean, we don't need to ask, but tell us why.
Yeah, Best is, I mean, he's a hero to every Northern Ireland fan. And I'm a massive Northern Ireland fan, and try to get to all the home games anyway when I can. But Best was incredible, and you some of his highlights, like it's unbelievable, and what he done at United.
Made the whole number 7 shirt famous.
Yeah, but I mean, he's one of the best players
ever
that's ever lived, no doubt about it. One of the best players. Most people from Northern Ireland will say he's the best, but it's hard to look at Ronaldo and Messi and Pelé before Maradona. But Best is an icon, an absolute icon. And he's another one I got to see play in a testimonial at Windsor Park. So he was in his 50s maybe.
Okay, yeah.
But, what was that like? What was he like?
It was great. He didn't run much, but you could just tell he still has it about him. He kind of stayed in the centre circle and just ping the ball.
Yeah, it's incredible when you see like ex-pros and they've still got like the technique.
Yeah.
But like even at certain ages, and you're like, wow, like how, some things just never leave you. But I think with George Best, like it's a shame. Like obviously he played for Northern Ireland. Like there wasn't much success with Northern Ireland, was there?
No. I heard him talking about, the commentator mentioned it. I can't remember who was playing the World Cup the other day. But they talked about someone as being one of the best players never to play in a World Cup. George Weah, I think they were talking
George
about.
Weah,
his son's at
USA, yeah, Timothy Weah, yeah.
So they were talking about him to be one of the best players never to play in a World Cup. And he rhymed off, and then he started saying, and you've got Ryan Giggs.
Yeah,
Ian Rush.
Yeah.
Or is he going to mention George Best here or what? And he kind of saved
I
himself.
think to
at
be
the
fair
end.
to him, he was mentioning Welsh players.
Yeah, I think so. You know
I
what I'm
remember
talking about?
Yeah.
But he kind of, it was almost like he'd forgotten about Best and then he put him in.
Yeah.
But he was unbelievable player.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was a super. They call him the fifth Beatle and stuff. Like he was the boy.
It's a shame when like you think players like that, they should just give them a pass. Like, who do you want to play for?
Yeah.
One day, like, just
What made him so magical?
He played in an era where you were still allowed to tackle. So there was guys literally trying to break his legs every match, but he was just going around them and bouncing off people and riding challenges. And I feel like a lot of players in this era, as well, I don't like comparing different eras. It's a different sport.
Well,
almost.
they never had sports science.
No,
They were going up after an Ulster fry. And
and a heavy night on the beer the night before, whatever, and sometimes showing up to games like half juice still, and putting in these unbelievable performances. And Best was just, I never met him. I would love to have met him.
What do you think you would have said to him if you had met him?
I don't know. I always get asked. Well, not always. I've been asked, who would you have at the dinner party, dead or alive, if you could, and Best is always there.
Top of the table.
Yeah, he's always there.
Is he a big, massive icon in Northern Ireland?
Yeah,
still,
huge, absolutely huge. I done a thing for BT recently actually, and I didn't even know you could do this, but you can tour his old house. So tour his old house. I mean, it's a terraced house where he lived in East Belfast, and they've got a kind of. It's amazing. They've got like his letters he's written home to his parents from Man United, and they've got the house as it would have been when Best was there growing up. So it's like a real sense of nostalgia.
What's it like?
It's amazing. I mean, you do the whole thing in 15 minutes because it's a tiny house. But I've done this thing with BT with Joe Cole, and Joe was loving it and thought it was amazing. It's like. It smells like an old person's. That old like smell. You go in and
bit musty.
Yeah, but it was.
But you love it.
Yeah, I
don't
loved
you?
it.
He massively represents football at that time, doesn't he? Really?
Yeah. No, like I said, he was an icon. Everybody he really put Belfast, Northern Ireland on the map. Like he was a global superstar, and Pelly talks about him like. Pelly described him as the best player that he'd ever played against and stuff, and. He's just an icon. Absolutely.
I think there's something special about players from that era as well, where it's like even when you look at the footage, and it's like they've redoctored it to make it like better look. But it's just I think the jersey that you've picked as well. It's such a beautiful kit. Like it's just the badge.
Yeah.
Nothing else. There's no sponsor or anything.
Yeah, there's
else.
nothing. I mean, there's so many people would still wear that kind of old
100%,
retro
yeah.
Northern Ireland cap, like walking around Belfast. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about you and your roots? Because talking of Belfast, you got your first world title there, didn't you, against Kiko Martinez? What was that like?
Unbelievable. It was. I fought kind of on the Titanic slipway, so pretty much where they built the Titanic, in the shipyard in a purpose-built arena. It was just race ground, 16,000 people, and from the ring, you could kind of see Taggers Bay, where I'm from, in the distance, and it was like really iconic for me. Yeah, amazing.
How does that feel when people are like shouting your name and stuff?
It's nice, you know. I look, that's one of my biggest achievements and accomplishments. I think was the support and the fan base that I had. Like, they were really passionate, and they travelled the world to see me. You know, I brought, I think, maybe 5,000 people to Las Vegas when I fought Leo Santa Cruz, and there's not too many people can do that. But the fan base I had, they were fanatical and loyal, and they have my back. They all have my back.
You know what? I want to touch on something you said about Billy McKay, and that he said, you know, your boxing is your work almost, but your family are first. How much of an influence and support of your family and those immediate people around you been in your world?
Oh, massive. I mean, I don't think I could have done half of what I've done if it hadn't have been for people supporting me that maybe don't get mentioned that much, but like my mum and dad, you know, we're working class, never had much, but I never went without really, and my dad was always putting his hand in his pocket to kind of fund my career, and helped me as an amateur, and my mum the same. My wife, Christine, actually, when I met her, I was an amateur boxer, and I wasn't being funded. There were some guys who were getting a bit of funding on the amateur setup, but I wasn't. So I literally lived off her student loan. I had no money, and I had this dream, and I was like, right, I don't want to go and get a 9 to 5 because it's going to affect my training, and I'm going to get to the top. And she trusted me, and she believed that, and you know, I kind of lived off her student loan.
I
for a
hope you
while.
paid it back.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think I have. But I mean, you never forget them sort of things. But look, I've been helped with so many people. There's been so many people who have helped me along the way, and that's only.
It's nice to hear someone actually talk about it, embrace that, because you get so many people these days going, "Oh, I'm self-made. I did it by myself."
No, I'm not. Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
You need. It's an individual sport,
but everyone.
Yeah, you need a good team of people around you.
Yeah, that's nice to hear, man. That's what I'm saying.
Are your children aware, really aware of what you've done?
No, not yet.
You're just dad to them, aren't
I
you?
still have to keep reminding them. It annoys me a bit. Like, I had a
Do you ever
conversation.
go like, I'm cool, you know?
Yeah.
Like to your kids.
I won Zoo Magazine's Coolest Man of the Year in 2015. So, like, Tom Hardy came second that year. You know what I mean? So I have to keep. She's laughing. You're laughing way too much about this.
I just love that.
He'd
That's the
beat
thing.
Tom Hardy, you know?
Yeah.
He'd beat Venom.
I think that's a great accolade. Who voted for it?
I think so. This is why I won. I think because there was a list of 20 people, and a lot of them were big time.
Who are we talking?
Tom Hardy, Beckham, Prince Harry, Ed Sheeran.
You beat Beckham.
You beat Prince Harry.
Let me tell you. There you
very
go.
much.
There you go.
I seen me on this list of 20, and I think I was probably the only person who retweeted it. So no one really cared apart from me, and everyone that kind of follows me, well, a lot of them voted for me, and apparently it was a landslide.
I think that's a huge achievement, and your children will revel in that one day. But for you, what is your greatest achievement? Personal and professional.
Professional, winning my first world title. That was like everything I've wanted to achieve, and that feeling of getting your hand raised at the end, especially doing it at home in Belfast. So the champion came to me because you know the money that can be generated and the fan
100%.
base, and to do it at home, that was really special. But my kids, like, you know, nothing beats your kids and watch them grow. I'm proud of my kids. Like, my two good kids, you know, funny. The wee boy's really, really funny. He's just turned 8. Yeah, he's hilarious, and he's got his own little attitude and stuff. A little girl who's a bit older, really sensitive and nice and clever, and yeah, that's it, really.
Being world champion, I always find it interesting to know, how do you get motivated after that? Once you've achieved like a lifelong ambition,
Yeah.
Where do you get the motivation to go again?
You just want more. It's like setting new goals. And after I'd beat Kiko Martinez, I fought an American loudmouth called Chris Avalos in my next fight. And I mean, I wanted to kill this guy. Like, he was just obnoxious. His family weren't nice, and if it was me kind of reaching the pinnacle and winning the world title, and then the next fight, maybe no thing. I've done his attitude really got me fired up for that fight. But then after that, it's like you want to unify a division, which I've done against Scott Quigg, and then after you do that, you want to move up and try and win a world title in a different division, and I've done that against Leo Santa Cruz. So the goal was to win a world title. So in a sense, I've overachieved. Like, I didn't think
Everything after that was a bonus.
Absolutely.
Carl, you've been an absolute joy. You are so lovely and humble, and I'm sure that your children one day will recognise.
I hope that's the dream. That's the real dream.
Thank
the kids
you.
realise that I was all right, you know.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was 2015's coolest man, as voted by you, the public. Carl Frampton, thank you for coming along, man.
And thank you so much as well to Classic Football Shirts for providing us with these absolute beauties.
This has been Strip, brought to you by William Hill.
18+, be gamble aware.